Hi, I wanted to welcome you to the Divorce Planning Podcast. I'm Carri Goldring, and I'm in the mortgage business, and I do planning pre-divorce for people who are either going to refinance their home, do an equity buyout, or plan to purchase a new home and make sure that everything in the divorce decree is worded properly and the numbers in the planning is taken care of so that you can go through the underwriting process smoothly. And I would like to introduce you to other people who are interested in the divorce planning process so you can get a real education of what's involved. Hope you enjoy. Today I want to welcome attorney David Soble, who specializes in real estate and financing. And I am excited to have you with us. So thank you for being here.
Hi, Carri. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it too. And one of the topics that I want to talk about is going to be a little off my normal divorce topic, but same philosophy. So we have two people who buy real estate together, either two family members or a couple, and they have the privilege, we'll call it a privilege, of getting divorced to separate their property, and they're kind of left on their own. And I'm assuming that you end up with those types of cases because obviously they're not going to a divorce attorney.
Right. I mean, actually, it's interesting. More often than not, especially in these past few decades, people are cohabitating more. And they're buying property together, whether they're romantically involved or not. People are investing in real estate or they're purchasing it for their primary residence. But if they're not married, the law doesn't treat that relationship as a married couple, right? The court just treats it as if they're partners or like partnership. And if it's a partnership, it's the law that regulates that relationship is going to be business or contract law. So
Really different.
Right, completely different. And we do, I think we were speaking a while ago, you and I were talking about how more frequently we deal with these situations, but I think I have around, on average, 4 to 5 new transactions each month that come through the offices related to a relationship breakdown, whether it's business or just a relationship, romantic relationship that went astray. And what happens is these people, their relationship to each other is just by deed. They really did not. They haven't gotten married, and very often they don't have a partnership agreement. They have nothing.
Right. And it could be two sisters, right? I mean, it could be a mother-daughter. It doesn't even have to be a romantic thing.
100%. And people have breakdowns in relationships all the time. It could be your family member. It can be a great friend. People go into business together, whether they realize it or not, when they're investing in real estate. And then what we get into is a partnership relationship. And that partnership may not even be memorialized into writing, right? It could just be you and I could buy a home together and we're friends. And we go, I don't know, we'll just split it, Carri, 50-50, right?
Right.
But then when things go south, there are issues that come up related to things such as partnership contribution. How much, Carri, if you and I buy a home together, but you are the only one who qualifies for the mortgage and I can't qualify for the mortgage, you might be on the mortgage and you may have been required to put more down on that mortgage, even though I could have given you some of that money. But the onus is now on you. You have different responsibilities to the mortgage company. You may have come up with more money for a down payment. And so now all of a sudden that 50-50 relationship, or it could have been 60-40 going in, it could have been 70-30, we don't know. But I do know a couple things. Number one, the family court, the divorce court, a divorce judge has no jurisdiction over you.
Right.
And I'll tell you a little story, but years ago when, gosh, I mean, well over 2 decades ago, I actually had a couple come to me and I automatically assumed that they were married. nice couple, and they bought a beautiful home, but they had a falling out, and they wanted to sell the house, and they could not agree on who gets what, etc. So I'm in the conference room with them, and I call up a friend of mine who's a divorce attorney because I don't do divorces, and I refer these people over to the divorce attorney. Well, they never told me that they weren't married, and she calls me up around like a day later. She goes, thank you for the referral, but I have to send them right back to you. I'm like, why? She goes, because they're not married.
Oh, goodness.
Assume they were, which, I'm bad. But long and short, what happens is when you're not married and you don't have something reduced to writing in real estate, everything has to be reduced to writing. Okay. If anything over a year, if something's going to last beyond a year time frame, state of Michigan, as well as most states, has something called the statute of frauds, which is we want everything in writing because we don't remember things, time
Right.
goes by and people forget what the terms were.
Right. And the hard part with the house is there's a lot of maintenance and stuff too, right? So we could buy a house 50-50 and then it needs a new roof and you don't have any money to fix the roof. And then I pay for that. And I'm the one doing all the daily maintenance and the cleaning, and I'm getting really pissed at you.
Right. Well, let me share with you. I mean, you bring up an excellent point. So let's pretend for a minute that you put a new roof on and you do all this work. We call that contribution. A lot of people who come to us never keep track of what they've spent. So if there's a breakdown in the relationship and later on you want to, collect the money that's due to you, you have to know what was spent and you have to be able to support it. Also, like if you're paying on the mortgage payment, let's say a mortgage payment for, just to make it easy, is $2,000 a month. And you say, well, geez, I've been paying $2,000 a month on that mortgage. I'm entitled to all that money back that I paid. You're
Right.
actually not entitled to the $2,000 a month. The law says you would have paid 1,000 for yourself. So you're only getting back 1,000 for whoever you're advancing it for.
That makes sense. And
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say too, do you have situations where you have someone who bought a home single and then somebody's going to come move in with them and now they're a tenant in the house that you own, and
That happens, right? And promises are made. We have a couple cases like that. We're, again, a romantic relationship. Whoever the parties, they trust each other. We understand that, and then they have a falling out. Again, now they come into the home. They are technically a tenant, but what if that person comes in and, I don't know, says, I love you so much, I'm going to install a pool for you. Who does the pool really belong to? Well, if it's a husband and wife and there's a divorce, it's 50-50. The judge is most likely going to say 50-50.
right.
But if it's anything else, it's a contract, it's a partnership. Now you have to go before a different judge. It's a circuit court judge. The only judge in the whole state that can determine your rights to your property is going to be a circuit court judge. Okay, initially, if you have to appeal, then you go up through the appellate process. But the circuit court judge makes that decision, and you have to have the evidence. So a lot of people don't have an agreement. Just recently, I put something out for February, talking about, people falling in love in February. It's the breakup protection plan I have, and it deals with real estate, and it's a contract. It's almost like a prenup.
You need it.
100%.
No one thinks about it.
Well, you know what else they don't think about, Carrie, which is actually even more astounding? And I do understand it because, if you don't do real estate every day, and if you don't do real estate law every day, and if you don't do mortgages every day,
Right. You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know, and you don't know what to ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so many couples will take title to a property and they won't know. They have no clue. I got a deed. They have no idea that deeds have consequences. The language in a deed has consequences, far-reaching consequences.
You know
If
what I hear a lot from my married people?
Yeah.
When I say, are you on the deed? They say, I think so. I signed papers at closing.
Right,
That's like a very common answer.
right. And so if, again, let's pretend we're just friends and we bought a home together. We're friends. We were going to invest in this property, but then we have a falling out. I'll have one partner comes to us and says, I want out, get me out of this. And we look at the deed, and in Michigan, the law is if it's joint with right of survivorship, even the courts can't break that up. I don't care who they are. So you're now stuck with that individual. You're stuck. You have to come up with a deal, work something out. Hopefully there's contribution. Hopefully, in that scenario, one of the partners contributed in order like a much higher amount to, let's say, the sale or something, because they can still ask for what we call contribution. And that's where you get people.
I got a question now.
Sure.
All right, we own this home together as friends, rights of survivorship. We're still getting along, but I want out. Can you buy me out or we can't do anything?
Sure.
Okay, so we can
It's
still do
amicable.
that.
You can do anything you want.
Okay.
But it's when you break up, when you have
when
dispute.
you're fighting.
Right. One of our taglines is that we clean up after legal vomit, right? Every day in real estate. And I know it sounds a little gross, but the thing is that there's always a way to clean it up if the parties are willing to do so. But it's better to have like contracts, things in writing, go see an attorney. People always think, oh, it's so expensive to see an attorney. I got to pay them to give me advice. Well, you're going to pay an attorney in whatever focus area that they're in.
Right.
More
or people who buy before they get married. And then they think, oh, well, we're going to be married. So what difference does it make?
Right. And family members are, believe it or not, are some of the worst people to go into business with.
Right.
I wrote a book. If you go on my website, it's called Shady. And it's basically an attorney's guide on how to protect yourself in relationships between family members and friends. That's what it's called. And everything it's deduced to, you must have the right written documents to regulate your relationship. Okay. That people's expectations are met and set forth in a document.
That
And
makes
then you
sense.
don't have those problems.
Right, I'm going to give you these weird scenarios that I heard that I don't know if they're like true or not true. And you tell me.
I love all that, right? I love questions and answers.
Oh, good. So I have a friend, she owns a home. Her boyfriend lives with her. He doesn't own the house. He's just living there.
Okay.
They get in a huge fight. The police are called. She gets hauled off to jail and
Okay.
he gets to stay in her home.
Right.
And supposedly he has more rights as a tenant than she has as the owner in the house. Is that true or not true?
Well, I think the problem is there. I mean, did she live there with him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't want to get too deep into the like legal authority, but when those disruptions and disputes and skirmishes occur and the police are called, they're just trying to find any way just to separate the parties so that nobody gets hurt. But domestic relationships are tricky. I'm not a family lawyer, but when the police come out, their first job is to de-escalate the situation and separate the parties. So by that situation, I do understand what they were doing, but unless they see an attorney, first of all, no police officer is there to give legal advice, and they usually don't have any documents. They don't. I hear this quite often. We get those situations, and people will come in there and they'll say, "But he said that the property line was here," and I'm like, "Oh, so now the police officer is a professional survey engineer." They're just they're doing their job just to de-escalate and keep the peace. They can't tell you anything about surveys or property lines or whose rights are what. That's not their job. Okay. But I do hear it often. you know, we do get it.
Sure.
But do tenants have rights? Like after that situation, I could see how he could get an attorney that says, basically, I'm a tenant, she's the owner, and yes, tenants have rights. I don't do a lot of landlord tenant matters per se for the tenant. I usually represent the landlord in both commercial and residential. But tenants have rights, and we have to respect those rights according to the law. And I have a case tomorrow that I'll be appearing on that deals with, again, people living in a house. So it is similar to what you're talking to me about, where a lease was created by the tenants and then forged, like the names were forged. And so when my seller investor went to go start the eviction process, he thought they were month-to-month tenants.
Ooh.
They went to court, and these people produced a full year lease. So what do you do there?
Right.
You have to respect it until you can verify otherwise, right? And a court's going to do that.
Oh, goodness. All right. And then, so here's another one.
Sure.
And I don't know if this makes a difference or not. Okay, so I typically, do Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac type mortgages, but there are credit unions who do mortgages that I don't have anything to do with.
Sure.
I've had a couple people call me who have said that trying to think how this works. Let's say a mom owns a home and an adult child lives there. And the property is given to the adult child after the mother passes away.
Yeah.
But they've had loans with credit unions, and the credit union makes them pay the mortgage off, or they threaten foreclosure.
I deal with this all the time. Let me, is your question done, or are you making a statement?
No, break it down for me.
Okay. So, I come from financing and big bank lending, and
I do.
So this is something that I've been dealing with for years, but there's federal law. I don't know who's giving that individual the advice, but federal law, the federal servicing laws, and I won't give you the name, we'll just say federal servicing laws, protect family members when they live at a home and their loved one, the decedent, has passed, and the decedent had a mortgage with a bank. Okay. So long as it's a federally regulated institution. So FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA.
Not credit union.
Well, credit union, even a portfolio loan, credit unions are regulated by the federal government.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it's a mortgage, primary residence, has to be a primary residence, the lender has to give these occupants who are related, they have to be related. They're called beneficial owners. They're like the beneficiary. The people have to fill out a form. They have to send it into their lender showing that they live there, and they have to remain current on the mortgage. And if a lot of times what will happen, this is when we get them, is that people will think, oh, well, my parent passed away. Don't pay the mortgage. Well, then all of a sudden the mortgage goes into foreclosure.
Right.
If they get caught up, which is what we recommend, then they can take advantage of that federal law, and that mortgage will continue for as long as however many months are left on the mortgage, provided that the family member lives there and continues paying on the mortgage. So they're treated fairly. The law treats them very fairly, but people don't realize they have those rights.
Right.
So we get, and again, you can go on the website, we have this come up quite often, but it's called the Wiley Act, right? It's after, nobody knows this, but it's after 5:30, right? So, I mean, I've been up since 5, but that federal act protects, it's a servicing law, and it's a very extensive law, and it's part of RESPA, but in there is an area that protects family members.
Okay.
Okay, great question, by the way.
Sometimes I use that whatever bleach line, whatever they are.
Leach,
when I have a spouse who's
Lilac.
when I have a spouse who's not on the mortgage and they're getting divorced, but she was awarded the home,
Yeah,
I can use that for like a assumption, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word,
yeah,
which works.
yeah. And you know, banks, you know, not going to pontificate, but I do my best pontificating at home. But I will tell you this: people think banks want your house.
They don't.
Like, oh, and you know this, they don't. They really just want the monthly payment, and they don't want to go through the expense of ever having to do a foreclosure. But people do run into difficulties. But that's one that they shouldn't. Like, if you live there and you're making income, pay the taxes. That's another one, by the way. Reverse mortgages.
Pay the taxes.
Pay the taxes. What do you know, why are you waiting around? Because the bank on a reverse mortgage will foreclose if you don't pay the taxes.
So I'm wondering if the one that I heard about, the people didn't live in the house.
The likelihood is that when you lose a property after a loved one's passed, it's twofold. It's either you're not living in the property, or you haven't made any payments on behalf of your family member and you're living there and you're not paying. I do want to tell you that many lending institutions, when they hear that there's a death of a borrower and a probate has to be started, they will work with the family. In fact, I've never had a bank or lender or mortgage bank say, no, we're not going to work with the client.
That's good.
It's usually, I hate to say, it's usually the client not being aware because they wouldn't know initially. And most people don't come to us until there's legal vomit, right? It's like fire. We're fire jumpers.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
By the way, it's the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act.
There you go. Thank
It's
you.
not the Graham-Leach-Bliley. It's like a tongue twister, but
it is a tongue twister.
It's been around since the 90s, and it's actually it's definitely very needed. So, but that deals with probate and real estate. That's a good question. You have any more for me? You know, I used to do this format with a very good friend of mine during the pandemic.
Oh, that would be
Blair
fun.
Clark. It was fun. We used to do like 7 Q&As every week.
It's smart. Those are the only two that were coming to the top of mind, but I'm sure if I write them down as they come up, they probably come up every week, right?
Well, in our world, I do this weekly roundup, and it's based on, you know, every day we probably get anywhere from 10 to 20 questions coming into the office. Some are great, some are just like boring, but some are amazing. And like, those are the ones that we aggregate them, and every week we share around 6 to 8 of them in the weekly roundup on Friday, which is an email. And then they're in the newsletters too.
I see them in your newsletter. I find them very interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, they're all Q&As. I'll tell you, really interesting though, like what we're talking about, like you deal with like divorce all the time, you know, because you're certified in divorce mortgage, you know, for mortgage planning for divorcees, correct? What's the designation?
It's CDLP, Certified Divorce Lending Professional.
Okay. So I see this quite often, where we'll have and it's got like a couple wheels going, almost like a lady at the circus, you know, when they're spinning the plates.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually have one right now, and because you have that divorce certification, it's quite interesting. I'll share it with you. I have somebody who the lady was divorced. The husband was paying child support during the time, you know, the kids are younger, and he purchased a house with her. She moved on, and she went and you know, she got married again, but the child support still needed to continue. He got behind in the child support. Unfortunately, he died, and the only asset he has is their home. She gets a call from the realtor that says you need, on the title company, pardon me, and the realtor for the estate, and says you need to remove your lien because we want to sell this home. she's owed thousands and thousands of dollars in back child support where her children are.
Don't tell me she said they must know what they're doing. I'll sign.
No, she didn't. She called us immediately. Well, she was referred to us. And it turns out that there's so many different things, but one of the things is the home was not probated. Oh, it gets better. The home wasn't probated, and nobody wanted to help her. He has kids from another marriage. They didn't want to help because they knew that if they probated the property, she'd get it. So now she's the personal representative of the estate that is going to be selling the property so she can pay off her child support. And she has another home.
Wow.
So people don't realize, like, especially with like divorce, family law, it's so complicated and so many different issues there. And then you have 50% of the population who isn't married, let's say, and does something with, somebody else on property
It's more
without a,
complicated.
and it makes it even more difficult. And I can tell you what usually helps in those situations when they're really difficult. It's called litigation fatigue.
Yeah, it's like mediation fatigue in the divorce world.
Right. By the time they get to court, they're like, you know what? I know I have rights to this. I just want to be done.
Right. And it gets so expensive. All your equity is like taken up. We've had some of those where people get divorced. They don't want to refinance because rates are good. So then they stay on the deed to the home.
Right.
And somebody else gets remarried, but they're still on the deed and the mortgage. And then, one of them dies, and now the new husband and the ex-husband own the house together. And
right. I mean, it's never boring, right, Carrie?
Never boring.
Never boring. You come to work and people go, how can you do this every day? And it's like, oh, I love it. It's like a puzzle every day.
That's what I call it. I call it a financial puzzle. And the crazier it is, the happier I am, which is really sad.
Well, it keeps your brain moving. It's, I love it. I have a question for you, though.
Mm-hmm.
Are you quite a few attempts of people trying to assume mortgages because rates have gone up? And if that's the case, are banks allowing it or not really? They want the higher rate.
Some banks are allowing it. Lately, the people that I called who have wanted to be able to do assumptions have told me they're not able to do them.
Well, what would prompt somebody to give a modification, not an assumption? If you're a bank, like why would they give it let somebody hop on equity?
I would think it would be the servicing of the loan that has to be worth some money.
Got it.
That would be my guess.
Right.
Because I know we always want to hold on to our servicing. It's always a big deal if somebody refinances somewhere else and we don't keep it.
Right. That makes sense.
So if you say, no, I'm not going to let you assume, then they're going somewhere else, then they lose it, right?
Right.
But I guess the 2% and the 7%, when prime is 7.5%, probably not many assuming loans anymore.
Right.
It's too expensive.
It's expensive to book a loan and service a loan, and
right.
I get it.
Now, typically the VA, FHA, they're always assumable. So it's the good point there.
Right, they're always assumable. But you got to get the right buyer.
Right, because you have to make up the difference. But it works in a divorce case, a lot of times because you're only buying out part of the equity.
Right.
So if you can afford to buy out the equity, it makes sense.
Right. And that would make sense, right? That's a good way for people to move on if that can happen. Usually, though, a divorce or even any type of breakup will affect somebody's credit. Would you agree? Usually it's not always, but there's quite a few.
I'd say it used to be that way. I think people are very aware of how important their credit is, and most of the time, somebody's smart enough to know the bills need to be paid.
Right.
It's very rare that somebody is so vindictive that they're willing to ruin their credit. But I have had people where all the credit is in one spouse's name, and it's usually not the spouse making all the money.
Right.
And then they don't get paid, and then it's a big mess. But most of my business is refinancing to have someone buy somebody else out of their house. That would be a very big part of my business.
I looked up Graham Leach Bliley Act. I share it, but I don't know if I can move it over, but I'll send it over to you.
Okay. I think I have it because I reference it quite often.
Oh, it works. It works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything else you want to know?
No, I think that was it. I thank you so much for your time. This was fun. Do me a favor. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
Well, I mean, my name, if you just put in David Soble, attorney, my law firm I've been practicing law now for 35 years. I think I got it down right. And we have a really nice firm that we do business in 2 states, Michigan and Ohio. We're transactional attorneys as well as litigators, and we deal with real estate, financial disputes, which usually involves probate with real estate, and contracts, which is really important for people to always have a contract before you sign, call before you sign. But how you get in touch with us, just go, our tagline or nickname is Proven Resource. That's what we're known for, as being a proven resource in the area of real estate law. But, I'm not going to object to any good. Just the other day, somebody said, your law firm handles so many different, and this sounds like a backhanded compliment, we might have to like delete this part, but so much in real estate. Do you do anything with tax? I'm like, well, I'm not going to object to like outstanding work in tax, but we're not the people that do real estate tax work, but all you have to do is look up real estate lawyer in Michigan. We usually come up at the top or close to it.
Soble is S-O-B-L-E, because I know that.
S-O-B-L-E, and it's right on the screen there. But really, like proven resource is what we're known as, and so Soble Law, proven resource, that works.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Sure. Thank you, Carrie, for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I'm Carri Goldring, and if you ever have any questions regarding mortgage, feel free to give me a call or send me a text message, 248-420-4524. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.